All right, folks, we are live. Welcome to Fox 5 Live. If you're watching on Facebook, which I know we're streaming on Facebook, we do these things on YouTube just about every day here. Well, we do it every day. Sometimes I'm here, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes Tucker's here, sometimes Tucker's not. I'm trying to get Tucker to come over in a little bit. We'll see if Tucker shows up here. This has to be a quicker video, though, because we all have meetings to get to in about 20 minutes or so. I want to talk incoming cold. We got a big cold blast coming to D.C. here this weekend. Hope you're ready for some wintertime feels out there. Get your gloves ready, get your hats ready. No snow just yet. Tracking things. Maybe we'll get some snow as we get towards December. Still don't see any coming into November, though. All right, let's get to it. I'll show you what you can expect here going forward. First, let's just take a look at the beautiful globe. It's gorgeous, isn't it? I love the full view of the satellite with the sun coming up across the world. Beautiful view from GOES 16, one of the NASA satellites. Also get stuck staring at these wind maps all the time. And you can kind of see the weather features going on right now. Notice this little bit, and I'll kind of circle it with my mouse here. Well, I'll get a little darker than that. Right there. See that little push out of the north and west? That's your cold air mass coming down from Canada. That's what's coming in as we head towards Friday and towards Saturday. This little spin out here is what's left of tropical storm Rina. Rina is now a post-tropical cyclone. It's headed away. No worries here. It's going out to sea. But just always a reminder that, hurricane season's still very active here, even as we head into November. So still have things to watch there. Although I will say right now we've gone pretty quiet. Nothing else expected to pop up after Rina. Rina's storm number 17 of the season, so it has been a very active season here in D.C. Speaking of here in D.C., here's what the satellite looks like right now, and it's a mess. Lots of clouds around, a lot like yesterday. Maybe they broke out into a peak of sunshine or two on the eastern shore. I see a little hole right there, a little bit more in Delaware there. But it looks like we're going to be stuck in the muck for the most part today. Let me move my little photo here. And you can almost see, watch the top kind of right corner of your screen. You see that little boundary trying to come out of Pennsylvania there. Watch as it loops back through. See that little push right where my little mouse is of the clouds? That's drier air trying to get in here. It's going to get in here later on tonight, and that's going to bring us some colder temperatures. If you live north and west of town tonight, you have a freeze watch in effect that I'll show you in just a minute. That for below freezing temperatures possible as we head into the overnight hours tonight with clearing. We will finally get rid of the clouds, and tomorrow's sunny and bright. Until that point, though, here's the Fox 5 weather site, fox5.com/weather. And it's showing the showers. There's some drizzle out there. There's a little bit of shower activity coming down. Looks like Montgomery County towards Aspen Hill, a little bit of shower activity there. You go up north towards Columbia, some showers. And then down through central Virginia, it's more real spotty, light, drizzly kind of stuff here. Not too much going on behind it. You look out to the west, not too much more popping up here. We're going to keep the threat for drizzle in through at least the middle portion of the afternoon, probably 3, 4 o'clock. Becoming more and more spotty in nature as we continue to roll on here through the next few hours. And then it should dry up pretty quick. Then again, with the clearing tonight, here comes the cold. Watch this. We're going straight. This is kind of raw model data here I'm showing you. Watch this zone of purple right here, circling it with my mouse there. Watch it just kind of thump us as we head into the next couple of days here. Boom. That is a nice, look where it's coming from. So it's up there in northwest Canada. They got a lot of snow up there. In fact, a huge amount of snow for this time of year. They're above normal in terms of how much snow has spread across the northern portions of North America there. And that snowpack allows the cold air to just kind of build over it. And then when it gets a push, like it's getting this weekend or as early as tomorrow, we get cold here. We get winter-like cold in the middle of fall, and that's exactly what we're going to see. Starting tomorrow will be breezy here in D.C. We're going mid to upper 40s. We'll never feel like it. It's going to feel more like lower 30s I'm sorry, lower 40s most of the day tomorrow, even with the sunshine, because the wind's going to be blowing a little bit, helping the wind chill values, keeping those wind chill and real feel values down a little bit tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow evenings when the real cold kind of settles in. Yes, north and west are cold tonight, and I'll show you how cold in just a minute, but it's tomorrow evening and then into Saturday morning. You're playing soccer Saturday morning, you got soccer practice, you got a football game, you got something on Saturday morning. Bundle up. It's going to be a frigid one out there early on Saturday morning here. There you go. So one more time, just look at that thump us, just straight out of north and west. It holds on, the chill holds on, and I'll go into that in just a minute. The chill holds on a little bit into next week, but the real cold is just kind of a 36-hour period Friday, and then through the day on Saturday, and even into Sunday morning. We're chilly, though. Again, Saturday morning's the coldest here. In fact, coldest November day, it looks like Saturday is going to be Veterans Day, by the way. Don't forget to salute your vets. Any vets out there watching, thank you for your service. Any active service members out there watching, any branch of the military, thank you so much for your service. Looking at morning lows tomorrow morning. You're waking up, you're getting to school. Should have clear skies out there, which is certainly something we haven't seen too much of. This is pivotal weather, by the way. Raw model data showing 32 degrees up towards Frederick. So again, these north and west towns, maybe some 20s in the mountains. They're not under a freeze watch because mountains north and west have already seen their cold temperatures and their growing season. They've already seen below freezing temperatures, so their growing season's done. They only issue these frost advisories and freeze watches and warnings when the growing season is still in place. And it is still here in D.C. because we haven't hit freezing just yet, but it's almost a certainty we will. Not so much tomorrow morning, but that's Friday, so that's tomorrow morning as you wake up. Most of the below freezing temperatures north and west. We get into Saturday. There you go. Look at the difference. And that's 21 is what the models are showing in Frederick, Maryland. It's showing 28 here in Washington, D.C., which is what we went with, showing 28 in Baltimore as well. Teens possible in the high elevations out to the west. I'm talking mountains of West Virginia there. But mostly kind of 20s all around the region as this cold air mass comes up. The afternoon, we're sunny and bright for the first part of Saturday. Clouds build the second half of the day, but we'll warm it up into the lower 40s. But some of our suburbs stuck in the 30s all day on Saturday. And here's the man of the hour. Hold on. I got to cue it up. I got to cue it up.
Ready?
Ready?
I'm just blowing through.
Is that it?
That's what you get. Oh. Get it? I'm just blowing through.
I don't have to pay you for that appearance. Now, see, they can't hear you. They can hurt you a little bit, but they can't.
I'm just blowing through.
You gotta put that mic on.
Okay, what's going on?
Nothing. We're just talking cold. I was actually just about to show you a tweet.
Which one was that?
This one.
Oh, yeah, the hard freeze.
Yeah, freeze watch Saturday night. And I don't have the other one queued up, but north and west freeze watch.
Right, so we just want to remind everybody, if you have sensitive or tender vegetation, you want to make sure you cover it up.
Do you have any sensitive or tender vegetation?
No, but Steve Shenavy's famous for his sensitive.
Yeah, he's a very tender guy. So is McCarthy.
Oh, yeah, he's
he's super veggie.
Right.
Super tender.
Not enough sunshine and just right temperatures, he'll wilt. Yeah. Okay, good. So lots of numbers about how cold it's going to be, and it's not just going to be in the Mid-Atlantic. I mean, we're looking at the potential for.
No, I was showing them this. I mean,
yeah.
Look at all the 20s. All the way down through Southern Virginia in this model.
Yeah, Steve was mentioning to me he's going to be in Northwest PA this weekend. Teens.
Fun.
By Saturday morning. So hey,
it's a little early.
Comes with the territory, right? But it looks like we're going to be in for a colder than normal pattern for a couple weeks, and then we'll see what happens this winter, right?
Fingers crossed.
Okay.
Could it possibly be worse than last winter?
Well, I mean, some people love last winter, and I understand that not everybody loves a winter, but from a forecaster standpoint, we like to be challenged.
Look, we get bored here if it doesn't snow.
Right.
I mean, that's just the reality of the situation.
And let's be perfectly honest, we run out of things to say to each other.
Right. Yeah. Like me and you down here all day.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So if we have some weather to talk about, we share that in common.
Especially after 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week.
You know, a couple dudes hanging out, we just run out of things to say. Yeah. So there's like long moments of
there's only so much locker room talk to go around.
It's just it's just that awkwardness where there's nothing being said, but just kind of stare at each other. That's what happens when the weather's nice. So we need something to talk about.
And
I get it. Yeah, I see what you're doing there.
Yeah,
okay. Yes. I gotta go to a meeting. I'm on my way.
Oh, okay.
I love I love the Mike Thomas Show. Is that what we're calling this?
I don't know what we're calling it yet. I need a more creative name than the Mike Thomas Show.
Let's call it the Mike Thomas Show for now.
For now, that'll be. But we'll star it.
And let's also, I mean, if you at home are listening or paying attention on Facebook right now, Let's come up with some like cool logo for the Mike Thomas Show.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
I like what we're thinking.
Yeah.
But it's on YouTube. We're on Facebook today, but usually it'll be on YouTube.
Right. So there's a chance somebody's watching today.
165.
Okay, that's good.
Not
Take
bad,
it.
huh?
That's like 165 times your normal viewership.
And we got 3 on YouTube.
Okay, so
we're making progress. That's one more than yesterday.
You're rolling today.
We're making progress. Oh, Aaron Como's here.
Oh, here we go. It's a total party.
What's up, Aaron?
Hi.
Now your head's cut off.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go.
You got to look in there.
Oh, in there? Okay.
Yeah,
oh,
this is a little
this
different.
is new for me.
Yeah.
I just had chocolate.
It's semi-new for all of us.
I like it. It's
Hey,
really
can they ask
cool.
us questions?
Yeah.
Ask us questions.
Yeah.
They can.
Yeah, come on,
Let's,
ask us a question.
I want to answer some questions.
let's
Yeah, I want to
answer
answer
some
questions too.
Ask,
Oh, no, I can't answer that. That's not
What
appropriate.
question did you get?
I'm just kidding. Nobody
Oh,
asked
I
anything
couldn't
yet.
see.
hold on, let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see. Mike Thomas talk. Ooh,
Yeah.
the Mike Toe Show.
Mike Toe Show.
Yeah, Mike Toe Show. Okay.
Mike Toe Show. Logo with outline of 3 dogs. Haha, see? They watch the Facebooks.
That's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Uh-huh. Hi, Diane. We see
there
you're
we go.
here.
What's your least favorite kind of weather to be stuck reporting, says Steven.
Oh, good question. All right, I think my answer for me is anything that just continues for weeks and weeks. So, in the summertime, we'll get stuck in like 94 and humid with an afternoon thunderstorm.
I don't like you when you
The
went
repetition.
when you went away to Iceland. It was a whole week of nothing.
Yeah.
So I was saying the same thing every day. That's the worst.
Yeah,
I like changing.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about DC is we get 4 seasons, and I like to have all 4.
Tim asked if we're trending for a more dry winter.
Well, La Nina tends to be a little drier, right?
It does.
Yeah, so.
But
Kenny laughed at us. I'm going to go. This is way out of my wheelhouse. You guys talk your weather.
Well, we're not just talking weather. We're talking about other things.
How's traffic?
Oh, you know what? I walked down to the Starbucks, and I got myself a coffee.
You did?
And I will say it's very misty outside.
Yeah, it's kind of drizzly and misty. So behind the scenes, Erin, she suffered after she ate her chip, her hot chip, for like 2 days.
Oh, it was not fun.
Yeah, you convinced me never to try that.
Tucker asked me a series of very personal questions, and let's just say 2 days after eating the chip, I still feel like I'm finally just like getting my head and sinuses back to normal. Don't do it.
Did you throw up?
Yeah, immediately after I ate it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that's why you ran off stage.
Oh, that is. I didn't want to be like that lady who ate the chip and puked on TV. That was bad business.
But it was great television.
It was really fun, but I will say it was.
Was it really fun? It didn't look fun.
Well, I will tell you this. I loved watching you go from, you know what, it's really not that bad, to like,
immediate death. Yeah, and here's the thing, like, I really do like spicy food, and I really thought to myself, how bad could it possibly be? It was worse.
Yeah, it's the ghost chips, right? They're like the ghost pepper.
Yeah, and it has like some other kind of pepper in it that I never heard of that's really crazy. And like, look, don't try that at home. Like, it was not worth it.
Yeah, see, I eat nachos and they're like too spicy for me.
Really?
So
You're not a spicy
yeah,
person?
I'm not going to do any of that. No.
I just love putting hot sauce on everything. Tabasco, Frank's Red Hot. I try a lot of jalapeno peppers.
I've tried a bad tasting woman once or twice. I don't recommend that either.
You know that this is like on Facebook Live.
No, that's it. Here on the Mike Thomas Show, we can say whatever we want.
Is it?
I love about the Mike Thomas Show.
I tried to diffuse that.
Hey, Tim Moore wants to know, Mike, is Tucker your boss?
Yeah.
I should be his boss. Well, no, I say bossy things, but he doesn't listen.
Hell to the no.
Mike Thomas tries to appease Tucker's needs, right? Like you.
It's about to get crowded up in here.
Okay.
Hi,
yeah.
See, everybody wants to be a part of the Mikey T show.
It's the highest rated show on YouTube.
The MT show is a good name.
How many viewers are you up to?
3.
Yay!
No, wait,
that's not it though, Wisdom.
We're on Facebook
we're on
too.
Facebook, and people want to ask you things.
How many do we have on Facebook?
We have 141.
Yay!
Oh wait, we lost 10 people.
We lost like 20 people. Oh no, we're back up to 150. We're oscillating.
Okay, good.
All right.
That was a good word, Mike.
Where did you get the hot chips from? Redskin asked.
You know, that's a good question. I have no idea where
don't
they
know where
came
they got it
from.
from.
And I wasn't supposed to eat it. I was just, a last minute switch.
Yeah, she took one for the team, basically.
Well, yeah,
because everybody else chickened out.
We commend you for you should get like a medal or something, like I survived the ghost chip, or like a T-shirt.
I just considered a PSA. Oh, we have a meeting.
Our meeting's about to start. Bye, everybody. Hey, everybody said hi to us. Thank you. Thanks for watching.
Yes,
we appreciate
thank you so much for watching. It's cold this weekend. Bundle it up. More to come tomorrow on YouTube, so you can check us out over there. All right, guys. Meeting time. Sorry. We're going to roll. See you later.
Those that served in the Great War. Those people that served, remember, those were the parents of the greatest generation that served in World War II. As the mayor indicated, thousands of young Americans, 18 and 19-year-olds, were killed in that war. Many of them are still over in France in graves only known to God. When they came back home, several thousands other died from the Spanish flu when they got back to the United States. And after World War I was over with, America just kind of went on about the things that were pressing, and the World War I Memorial just never got approved to be done. So I am honored here today to be among those who dedicate this memorial. 100 years ago, April 6th of this year, the United States declared war in the Great World War I. And on behalf of members of Congress, we had flags flown over the United States Capitol on April 6th of this year to recognize those men and women who served, and to recognize this memorial that will be built starting today. So I want to give one of those flags to Mrs. Pershing today, that was flown over the United States Capitol on April 6th, 2017, 100 years ago from when we declared war at this time. Thank you, Mrs. Pershing. I would now like to introduce the United States Secretary of Veterans Affairs, the Honorable David Shulkin, and he will address you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Congressman Poe. Like you, it really is an honor to be here, to be part of this dedication. Both of my grandparents served in World War I, so I'm especially grateful to be able to be here for this memorial. Just last week, our historian at VA presented me with my grandfather, Joseph Shulkin's draft card for World War I, which was really terrific to see. Neither of my grandparents talked to me as a child about their experience in World War I, but I can tell you, I know that they both will be proud that we're here today honoring them, because I know how much they love the country. Saturday is Veterans Day. I know all of you know that. And as Americans, we're going to celebrate those who had served and those whose duty it was to keep our nation free. We started that tradition 98 years ago on Armistice Day. And 54 years ago, we changed the recognition to actually be Veterans Day. But it's a very special day, so appropriate that we're doing the groundbreaking for this memorial today, just a few days before Veterans Day. Last week, you may have seen President Trump proclaim the entire month of November Veterans and Military Families Month, because there's so much going on and there are so many recognitions that we think are important for those who have served the country. Throughout this month, we're going to be focusing on important issues to veterans and military families, like caregivers and ending veterans homelessness. We're going to be announcing a new national ID card for veterans, never done before. The White House hotline will be launched, which is 24/7, answered by veterans for veterans. We're going to be expanding a national cemetery in Los Angeles and releasing a public service announcement that Tom Hanks narrates on the importance of all of us getting involved in reducing veteran suicide. I think we all know Americans benefit from veteran service, so all of us have a role in this monument to memorialize those in World War I. And in remembering veterans, we cherish the liberties that they preserved for us. It gives us our right to be Americans and speak our minds and to have the freedoms we have. As President Woodrow Wilson described, what he said is, they fought for the ultimate peace of the world and for the liberation of its peoples, for the rights of nations great and small, and the privilege of men everywhere to choose their way of life. There is no more noble purpose. So we honor those Americans serving both today and those that we will remember and will care for us for the years to come. It's my honor now to introduce the 39th Chief of Staff of the United States Army, General Mark Milley.
Thank you, Secretary. I appreciate those kind words. And there's a lot of dignitaries here, but I would like to especially thank Senator Warren for coming out here today, sir, for your patriotism and your great service to our nation. And it's a real honor for me to be on the stage with the granddaughter of General Blackjack Pershing, who led the American Expeditionary Force in World War I. We should recall what a great general he was, and later, between World War I and World War II, he became the Chief of Staff of the Army. And I have the privilege of living in his home right now up at Fort Myers. So, ma'am, thank you so much also for being here. You know, World War I, 100 years ago, and like the Secretary, I too have grandparents and granduncles that fought with both the British and American armies in World War I. It was a horrible war. And at the beginning of that war, in that fateful summer of 1914, in a period of only 6 weeks, the kings and the queens and the czars and the kaisers and the presidents and the prime ministers of Europe, in sequence, made a series of horrific decisions that they thought were not bad at the time, but it resulted 4 years later in an utter catastrophe in which 38 million people died, in which 200,000 Americans were wounded, in which 100,000 more were killed, where if you were a young male in Europe in 1914, you stood a 1 out of 4 chance of being dead by 1918. It was a war that ripped apart 5 empires and utterly destroyed economically, physically, infrastructure, and of course, from a humanitarian standpoint, all of the death and destruction. It ushered in a pandemic flu that killed another 56,000 American soldiers and countless others in the countries of Europe. And it set the conditions for the most horrific war in human history by ushering in World War II with a failed and flawed Treaty of Versailles. And it also set the conditions for the world that we live in today. The boundaries of the Middle East were set in 1918, 1919, and 1920 in the wake of World War I. So the struggles that we see today can be directly attributed to the First World War. And it's more than appropriate, 100 years after the end of that war, to finally begin the erection of a monument to the American participation in that war. And there's many, many lessons to be learned from World War I. There are strategic lessons, there's operational lessons, there's tactical lessons, there's lessons of politics and government and economics. But if there's one lesson most of all to learn, it's the lesson to vow never to let it happen again. And the way to prevent war is to maintain your preparedness for war, in the words of George Washington, our first president. The United States Army under Blackjack Pershing went to war, and in 1916, 2 years or so before the end of the war and a year before he entered into Europe, he was chasing Pancho Villa on the border of Mexico, riding a horse, leading horse-ridden cavalry troops. And he was a 1-star at the time. And the Army at that time had less than 200,000 soldiers in it, spread out in mostly constabulary duties. A few years later, the Army went from less than 200,000 to 4 million soldiers and rapidly expanded and mobilized the entire nation. In that time, we also raised a Navy and a Marine Corps and deployed them as well. But prior to 1917, we were in a complete state of unpreparedness. When Blackjack Pershing entered Europe, it took him 9 months to train and equip the United States Army and the Marine forces to fight alongside the British and French allies. A state of unpreparedness led to many casualties in the battles of the Argonne and many others. And the Argonne was the bloodiest battle in U.S. military history. That preparedness was repeated again in World War II and then again in the Korean War. So if there's one lesson for us to learn as a nation, it's to be prepared. If you want to sustain the peace, prepare for war. If you want to sustain the peace, then have large, ready, credible military forces that can do whatever the nation asks it to do in order to ensure this experiment in liberty is passed on to the next generation and the generation after that. As the Chief of Staff of the United States Army, it's my deep honor to be here today and honor those soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines that perished in the First World War. And it's our duty to remember what they fought for, why they fought. It's our duty to carry on that legacy and ensure the peace goes into the future. And at this time, I'd like to introduce the designer of this memorial, Mr. Joe Wayshar. He is only 27 years old. Look at him. He's an Eagle Scout, a highly skilled architect, and he's the man who has designed this memorial. So thank you so much, Joe.
Good morning. For the last 2 years, it has been my privilege and honor to be a part of what I consider to be the most noble undertakings today, and certainly in my own life. Rather than design a landmark which is pompous, ostentatious, or bombastic, we find ourselves here in a small park on America's Main Street, tasked with the creation of a memorial to a group of men and women who gave themselves in service and sacrifice without the thought of how or why or when they would be remembered. It may be long overdue, but today marks another point in the journey of making sure they are not forgotten. I became involved in this process in June of 2015 when I saw an announcement online for a memorial design competition. I was struck by the fact that there was no World War I memorial in our nation's capital. I had always assumed that one existed. After all, we had memorials to the other notable 3 wars of the 20th century. What began as a Google search led to another, and hour after hour, I found myself looking up every picture I could on the National Archives website. I was hooked. The thing that pulled me in were the faces and the names and the stories of the young men I was looking at. As someone who grew up in a quiet corner of Arkansas, I felt these people were kindred spirits. We each came from small towns, were roughly 25 years of age, some even 5 and 6 years younger. And we were experiencing the larger world for the first time in our lives. The fact that these were men and women who boldly stepped out into the world to defend countless others only cemented my admiration for them. Deciding to submit a design was one of the easiest choices I've ever had to make in my life. I wanted to create something that would resonate with people the same way it did when I looked at those photographs. That somehow you could reach across time and touch the people of a generation past. Those people were real, they were courageous, and they sacrificed everything for a better future. One of the truly remarkable gifts that I've received throughout this process is a shift in perspective for why I should continue to design and create. As I mentioned, I began this project because I felt a connection with these young soldiers. The last 2 years have shown me, however, that I'm not alone in that way of thinking. Many of you have shared stories of parents, grandparents, and family friends who have served in World War I. I even have an entire stack of cards and notes that I've received from complete strangers telling me why this memorial matters and what it means to them. So why am I involved in this memorial, and why should you be too? Because it matters. It matters more than to just me and you, but the people we represent. And a lot of people will never get a chance to meet or thank. I also look forward to reaching out to people my own age and getting them involved in the centennial so that they can appreciate the immeasurable contributions of young people in World War I. To everybody who has ever served to protect this nation, and to everyone who will visit this memorial, there will now be a new place to be reminded of the past and a new opportunity to say thank you. Now on to the memorial itself, and the reason why you're here today. I hope you've all found a moment or two to look through the renderings and the display boards, or have been following along on our website. But many of you who haven't seen what we're up to, don't worry, you're in the perfect spot to see what's going on. There's been a lot of talk the last 2 years about the main design element of the memorial, the sculptural bas-relief. If you look across the pool basin to your right, you'll notice the existing fountain and storage shed for the old ice rink equipment. We're proposing to make it more than 5 times wider and place a sculpture on the front facing us. Once completed, it'll be one of the largest bronze bas-relief sculptures in the world at 65 feet long and 11 feet high. Even though it'll be physically smaller than the other memorials by comparison to those on the mall, the undertaking of this piece of art is commensurate with the gravitas to those of the other wars of the 20th century. The mall may have the equivalent of Vatican Square, but we have the Sistine Chapel. The sculpture is a series of tableaus that overlap and fade into one another. The story depicted can be interpreted in 2 ways. First, as the narrative of a soldier experiencing the war, leaving home, joining with other soldiers, engaging in the conflict, experiencing the horrors and sacrifices of war, confronting those dark moments, and returning home side by side with his brothers in arms. In a similar way, the sculpture is a story about our country. We have a country at peace, pulled in opposition about whether or not to go. From all walks of life, people join side by side to make their way into the unknown. They emerge onto the battlefields of Europe, and willing to act and answer the final call. Aid is provided to the wounded and the strength, not that of soldiers, but of nurses and workers on the home front. And that strength pulls Europe out of despair and out of ruin. The country emerged stronger to face the future, united in the battles to come. Monuments and memorials give us an opportunity to reflect on the past, and each memorial chooses to do that in a different way. For some, it's about displaying the greatness of the victors or the sorrow that comes with loss. For me, and I believe for Sabin or Project Spilter, we want people to come face to face with the humanity we find in those who served in this war. Our purpose is not to sugarcoat history or distill a snapshot of a single conflict, but to tell the story of how this nation entered into the darkness of war in service of their fellow man and how they emerged united, resilient, and prepared to do so again. Now my pleasure to introduce Keith Harmon, Commander-in-Chief of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and Denise H. Ronahan, National Commander of the American Legion.
Thank you, Joe. It is an honor to be here today to represent America's largest and oldest major combat veterans organization, the Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States. The VFW was already 18 years old when our nation entered the so-called war to end all wars. A youthful age we shared with the great majority of the 4.7 million American men and women who would be mobilized to fight or support the war, both here and in the States and over there. Serving over there is a relevance that every VFW member shares with every veteran of every war or conflict. It is a relevance that we all were younger once, and it is a relevance that we all have walked the talk. Corporal Frank Buckles was our nation's last connection to World War I when he passed away in 2011 at the young age of 110 years old. Mr. Buckles was a VFW Life member who was buried not far from here on the top of Arlington National Cemetery. He's buried within spitting distance of a grave site of another VFW Life member, General John Blackjack Pershing. That generation's voice is now quiet, but their memories will live on through this new memorial, which the VFW is proud to support in spirit and financially. One thing our organization is about is the proper recognition of all who have continued to wear the uniform of our great country. A World War I memorial in our nation's capital is long overdue, but putting shovels in the ground today will finally recognize the service, sacrifice, and accomplishments of all of those 18-year-olds. The Great War was won because of America's commitment and direct involvement, which thrust the United States into a world leadership role that continues today. That is well worth remembering and properly recognizing here in our nation's capital. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, they are gone now, but their legacy endures. It was not the war to end all wars, but oh, how we wish it were. How we wish that those 116,516 fallen American heroes were the last to die in war. How we wish that none of the Americans who went over there would have to return to Europe and the Pacific a generation later to fight another great war. And how we wish that all political leaders from around the world would conduct themselves with the honor and the devotion of our brave military heroes, thus making future wars unnecessary. The legacy left by our doughboys, and yes, the women who also served, is freedom. Freedom from tyranny and fear. And while today's headlines often remind us that many parts of the world still are not free, the majority of the planet would look terrifically different if not for the brave men and women willing to lay down their lives for the liberation of others. World War I cemented American status as the leaders of the free world. It is a legacy that we must pass on to our children, our grandchildren, and to all generations that follow. Another legacy of the First World War is the organization that I am honored to lead, the American Legion. The American Legion was founded by World War I veterans in Paris, France, just a few months after the armistice was signed. And in the preamble of the Constitution of the American Legion, legionnaires commit to preserving the memories and incidences of our associations in the Great Wars. And this pledge is on the back of every American Legion membership card, and it is recited at all of our official meetings. It is with that promise in mind that we proudly present a donation of $100,000 from our national organization for the construction of this great overdue memorial. This follows an earlier donation of $70,000, and over the next 2 years, we are proud to pledge another $200,000 by 2019. Now, on a local level, many of our American Legion posts, our American Legion riders, our American Legion auxiliary, and our Sons of the American Legion will also be pledging and raising additional donations. While time has taken all of the World War I veterans from us, those of us who live in a free society, we are their living legacy, and we must remember them and this historic memorial, and they will serve as a perpetual reminder of their sacrifice and their heroism. Thank you for being here. God bless the heroes of World War I, our currently serving military, and God bless this great nation. And it is now my honor to introduce the Honorable Emerald Cleveland, Congressman Cleveland.
It is an honor for me to be here for the groundbreaking of the National World War I Memorial in Washington, D.C. And I've had the honor and pleasure of working on many facets of honoring veterans of World War I with my colleagues here in Congress since becoming a member. 13 years ago, Congressman Ted Poe and I were elected. We are classmates. Regretfully, because he and I become friends, I have to say he's going to retire selfishly simply because he wants to enjoy life, and we will miss him for many reasons, but one of them is for his willingness to help try to erase this poisonous partisanship that has infected Congress and the nation. And so we all have worked jointly on this legislation. We also were able to draft legislation that created the World War I Centennial Commission, and Congressman Doug Lamborn and I drafted legislation to mint the World War I commemorative coin. Both of these congressmen, along with like-minded members like Congressman Kevin Yoder from Kansas on the other side of the state line, and I have to just say this because his contribution is so important. He's a graduate of Kansas University, a subsidiary of Missouri University. And I appreciate the support in my amendment that designated this site where we currently stand as the National World War I Memorial. The 5th District of Missouri, which I proudly serve, includes Kansas City, home to the National World War I Museum and Memorial, one of the metropolitan area's greatest treasures. And I'd like to just ask Matt Naylor, the director of the Liberty Memorial in Kansas City to please stand. More than 4.7 million Americans served during World War I, and of those brave men and women, more than 116,000 made the ultimate sacrifice. It's long overdue that our nation's capital has a memorial to honor their service and sacrifices. Let us always remember those who fought to disassemble tyranny and shape our great nation. No gift is complete until we say thank you. This memorial says thank you to the men and women and to their families who helped make this nation great. I would now like to call to the podium my two colleagues, Kevin Yoder from Kansas and Doug Lamborn.
Your Honor, the Mayor and all of the other dignitaries who are here, members of the public, and most of all, our members of the military, and those who are about to become members of the military when they are commissioned, thank you for inviting us. Next year will be the 100th anniversary of the signing of the armistice with Germany, marking the end of battlefield hostilities in World War I. And as has been said, more than 4 million men and women served our country in uniform, and more than 100,000 gave all. To honor their services and sacrifices, Congress created the World War I Centennial Commission in 2013. The commission was tasked with planning and executing activities to commemorate the centennial of World War I through the use of private donations and coin sales. I introduced the bill that allowed us to honor the memory, service, and sacrifices of the brave veterans of World War I, while also providing the means to pay tribute to the end of World War I battlefield hostilities. Along with my colleagues in the House and Senate, including Representative Emanuel Cleaver, whom you just heard from, and Senators Roy Blunt and Claire McCaskill of Missouri, we authorized the World War I Centennial Silver Dollar in 2014. 2 of these are allowed to be issued every year. And behind me, you'll see a beautiful artist rendering of this coin, which will be minted next year. It shows a doughboy, it shows barbed wire, and it shows poppies. And I want to urge all of you to go out and buy some, because it'll help the commission. That there's a $10 surcharge with each coin that will be payable to the United States Foundation for the commemoration of the World Wars. So this will help the commission in commemorating the centenary of World War I. I also urge you to support the commission and its work here in Pershing Park. When completed, the millions of annual visitors to our nation's capital will now be able to visit a memorial to every major military conflict in the U.S., including World War I, and to pay their respects to the patriots who so nobly served in World War I. I'd now like to introduce my colleague from Kansas, Kevin Yoder.
Thank you, Doug. It's my true honor and pleasure to join this esteemed group of individuals and all of you here today to commemorate this very important moment for this country to remember its history, to pay tribute to fallen soldiers and veterans, to reflect on the lessons learned, and to take a moment to, again, unify our country over our incredible history of service and sacrifice. I have 3 sort of brief thank yous I'd like to offer in my brief remarks this morning. First of all, I'd like to thank the Commission, my colleagues Mr. Cleaver and Poe and Lamborn and others in Congress who stood together united to support the resources and the legislation to make this moment possible, the coin and the memorial. I represent the Kansas side of the line between Kansas and Missouri, where the World War I Memorial and Museum is in Kansas City in Emanuel Cleaver's district. And this is a moment of unity, a moment of Republicans and Democrats coming together, and even Missourians and Kansans, Jayhawks and Tigers coming together except for those remarks earlier that I was slandered by. This is a moment of unity, and it's a great opportunity to be part of that, I think, for all of us. Second, like those who've spoken to you today, I want to just thank the families, the men and women who over 100 years ago stepped forward into the breach and defended liberty and freedom around the globe. It is a tradition that is part of our American history. It is a tradition that has been passed down from one generation to another, and it is a tradition that makes America the greatest nation in the world. And as a beneficiary of that, as we all are, we stand here, we sit here today because men and women were willing to go overseas and fight in the Great War to protect our freedom, to protect our allies, to protect our principles. And but for those men and women doing that, we wouldn't carry that tradition forward. And so I guess my last thank you would be to the men and women overseas today who are away from their families, who won't be home for Thanksgiving, who won't be home for Christmas, who are putting themselves in harm's way to make sure that all of us and our children and grandchildren continue to benefit from the freedom that was sacrificed for by every generation in this country, and they continue to carry that baton and that torch forward. And so this is a tribute to veterans in the past, veterans and soldiers today, and men and women who will continue to serve this country for a long time. So thank you. God bless America. God bless our troops.
And now to close out this portion of the program, please welcome to the podium Terry Hamby, the chair of the World War I Centennial Commission.
Thank you. May I ask both of the Veteran Services Organization back to the podium, please? One thing that we forgot, and we certainly do not want to forget this, the check from the VFW. The Veterans Report. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Secretary Shulkin, General Milley, members of Congress, Mayor Bowser, thank you so much for participating in this ceremony. And I would like to thank this gray line behind me and the ROTC cadets in front of me for choosing the most honorable profession in the world for their service. I'd like to give special recognition to Congressman Cleaver and Congressman Poe as co-sponsors of the bill that established the act to educate, honor, and commemorate American citizens about the Great War and designate Pershing Park as a location of the World War I Memorial. Also to Congressman Cleaver and Congressman Lamborn for co-sponsoring the bill authorizing the U.S. Mint to mint a World War I commemorative coin. Some of the proceeds of that sale will go help build this memorial. I'd also like to thank Congressman Yoder, even though he hails from the state with the second best college basketball program in America, for his continued support and dedication in being a champion of this commission. And finally, to Senator John Warner for his lifelong service to his country as a veteran of World War II, a veteran of the Korean War, a former Secretary of the Navy, a former Chairman of the Armed Services Committee, and for his dedicated support and enthusiasm for our efforts to bring this memorial to Washington. World War I commissioners and foundation members, would you please stand, please? Thank you for your devotion and dedication to educate Americans on the Great War and to honor and commemorate those who served. The World War I Centennial Commission is very honored by your presence here today, here in Pershing Park, the home of the commander of the American Expeditionary Force. We're both honored and humbled to be a part of building a national memorial to our World War I veterans. Honored to have the unique opportunity to help memorialize the men and women who answered the call of their country and came to the aid of their fellow world citizens. Humbled as we recognize the courageous actions of those brave veterans that forever changed the world. Their actions brought the United States into a leadership role on the world stage. These men and women were the first to deploy to a country that most had never visited, fight in a war that we didn't start, and if necessary, die for liberty and peace for people they had never met. They fought for the causes that the U.S. citizens have always held dear, freedom and liberty. Just as our doughboys did 100 years ago, American military men and women are deployed around the world today to places most have never visited and fight for peace and liberty for people they've never met. This memorial is important. As a Vietnam veteran, it moves my soul when I see the names of my friends that are memorialized on that wall. It's a fitting remembrance by our nations to the veterans and families of those who gave their last full measure in service of the country in that conflict. Our 4.7 million World War I veterans and their families are no less deserving to be recognized with a memorial, just as all veterans who have been recognized for their service in all of our other nations' conflicts and wars. Moreover, it's our responsibility as citizens of this great nation to build this memorial for them 100 years after the war. Although there are no living World War I veterans to speak for themselves, it's incumbent upon us as Americans to speak for them. I speak for my grandfather, who never heard my voice because he lost his hearing in the service of his country in World War I. My great uncle, who I never met because he gave his life at St. Mahet. Virginia Willie's grandfather and great uncle, for Secretary Shulkin's grandfathers, and for Senator Warner's father, who was a Marine in World War I, and the millions of other families touched by the Great War. As Americans, we must remember their sacrifices and how their service changed the world forever. We as citizens of this great nation are benefactors for their service, and that deserves recognition. For 100 years, the 116,516 veterans who gave their lives, that's more than Vietnam and Korea together, the countless others who suffered horrible physical and emotional injuries, and the other millions who answered the call of their nation have been forgotten by America. It's a national tragedy that the millions of veterans of the Great War, who were the parents of the greatest generation, have not been memorialized in our capital. Today, this groundbreaking service starts a process of erecting a memorial here in Pershing Park alongside their leader, General John J. Pershing, the commander of the Expeditionary Force. This is America's memorial, and I hope all Americans join those of us here today in the centennial of the Great War to make this possible. In 1915, after the occasion of conducting a funeral for an officer in his command, Major John McRae, I'm sure filled with emotion, penned the words to In Flanders Field. As a veteran, the last verse has served as my inspiration to never forget the sacrifices of men and women in uniform who have defended and will continue to defend liberty and peace. McRae finished that last verse on Flanders Field with a message from all of our veterans who are falling, as he said, take up our quarrel with the foe. To you, from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If you break the faith with those who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Field. Today, with this ceremony, our nation starts the process of keeping the faith for our veterans of World War I. General Milley, as an American soldier and a former drill sergeant, may I have permission to toast the shovelers? Shovelers, post!
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our program. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, and also we need, hey, Mike, take this picture, will you? I have Roger take it. Shows up. Okay, she's going to take a picture.
To officially start the program, would everyone please rise for the presentation of the colors by the United States Capitol Police Ceremonial Unit. The singing of the national anthem is performed by Sergeant David Nelson, and the opening prayer offered by Reverend Patrick Conroy, Chaplain, United States House of Representatives.
say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, those broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight? O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, beat through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Let us pray. God of mercy, we gather this morning to recognize the men and women in blue, both of the U.S. Capitol Police and the Alexandria Police Department, who responded to the ultimate call of their noble profession and executed their charge with exemplary courage. Special Agents Crystal Griner and David Bailey, Officers Nicole Battaglia, Alexander Jensen, and Kevin Joby are heroes to their colleagues and to all in the U.S. Capitol and the city of Alexandria for their rapid response to a cowardly attack upon the Republican baseball team, which was dangerously exposed on a quiet neighborhood ball field. Thanks to their selfless actions, placing themselves in mortal danger, all present that day are with us this day to testify to the presence of courageous men and women in our midst. Bless them with all your graces as the Medal of Honor is bestowed upon them here. May they and their families and loved ones know of our appreciation for the sacrifices they make every day so that the security of the Capitol and the city of Alexandria is guaranteed. And may we all be inspired to service of others as we are able to express it in our lives and work. And we pray in your most holy name. Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you very much. Honored guests, members of Congress, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's ceremony. This morning is an opportunity for our department to recognize 5 heroic police officers who risked their lives to protect members of Congress and citizens during an active shooter incident in Eugene Simpson Stadium Park. Over the past several months, we've come to learn much about this incident, and some things may never be known, however. On June 14th, it was a day that changed the lives of many people, and we can all take great comfort in the fact that through the actions of these officers and the many individuals involved in this event, numerous lives were saved and tragedies were prevented. What I do know about June 14th is that the bravery of these police officers makes me proud to be Chief of Police. I know that Alexandria Chief Michael Brown feels the same way about his outstanding officers as well. As someone once said, bravery is not the absence of fear. It's action in the face of fear. Later today, the department will also be recognizing the heroic actions of others involved in this incident, and the excellent work of those who responded to the scene, as well as those involved in the detailed investigation in an attempt to bring closure to this incident. However, today the purpose of this ceremony is to award these 5 law enforcement officers seated here with our department's highest honor, the Medal of Valor. It's heartwarming to know that there are brave individuals who embody what is right about America, and more specifically, what's right about law enforcement. These are people who we owe a great debt, and I'm proud to work alongside such brave women and men. The musician Gerard Way noted that heroes are ordinary people who make themselves extraordinary. I couldn't agree more. These certainly are 5 unassuming people who acted in an extraordinary way when fate brought them together on June 14th. It's now my pleasure to invite guests to say a few words. I'd like to welcome the Democratic leader of the House of Representatives, the Honorable Nancy Pelosi, to the podium. Ma'am.
Thank you very much, Chief. Thanks to you and the Assistant Chief for bringing us together this morning so that we can appropriately acknowledge, not that it's enough, but an expression of our appreciation. So to you, thank you. It's an honor to be here with our Speaker and with the Democratic and Republican leaders of the Senate, Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell, to express the appreciation of all of the members of Congress, House and Senate, Democratic and Republican. It is a deep honor to join you to honor the heroes of the tragic congressional baseball shooting in Alexandria this past June. We're also pleased to be here with Representative Steve Scalise, our brave colleague, whose recovery is a blessing to us all. To see him healthy and walking is to see our prayers answered. We thank Jennifer and his children, Madison and Harrison, for the constant love and support that have made his recovery so possible. Thank you. It's also a privilege to be here with Zachary Barth, Matthew Mika, and the Congressional Republican baseball team, Coach Joe Barton and manager Roger Williams. On behalf of my colleagues, we congratulate you on your well-deserved Medal of Merit. We are in awe of your courage in the face of that despicable attack, and we commend the support and sense of community you have shown each other as you and your colleagues recover. I know that I can say on behalf of the Democratic baseball team, they're so proud of all of you. During his 2 years as president of the Board of New York City Police Commissioners, Theodore Roosevelt, a hero to so many of us, said it was his great honor to single out men for special mention because of some feat of heroism. Today, we have the honor of singling out 5 heroes, men and women, in recognition of their extraordinary bravery. Reverend Conroy mentioned them earlier, but I think that we cannot say their names enough. Special Agent David Bagley, Special Agent Crystal Griner, Officer Nicole Battaglia, Officer Alexander Jensen, and Officer Kevin Joby. For facing down danger, for selflessness, and meeting violence with courage, we're all grateful to you. Your heroism and grace under pressure is an inspiration to us all. Many of us will remember the attack on our Capitol Police heroes nearly 20 years ago. On that tragic afternoon, Officer Jacob Chestnut and Detective John Gibson were brutally gunned down in the line of duty. Today, as we celebrate the heroes of the Alexandria attack, we must also mark the service and sacrifice of those 2 brave men. Let us recall the words of the New Testament, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends." There is no greater love than the service that Officer Jacob Chestnut and Detective John Gibson gave to our nation that day. And so when we honor them and we honor our special heroes today, we are paying our respect to all of the members of the Capitol Police, House, and Senate. To each of you, our recognition of the bravery that we have seen is a recognition of the risk that you take to make the Capitol of the United States and those who serve here, both as members of Congress or the Senate, but also as staff, as press, and our visitors who come to see our great democracy in action. So to each and every member of the Capitol Police, thank you. To all American police who defend and protect this Capitol, thank you again for your courage, patriotism, and service. Each day you accept duties that demand selflessness and bravery, working long hours and putting yourselves in great risk for others. Every day you serve so that members of Congress, foreign dignitaries, staff members, and visitors across the world are safe and secure. Your patriotism and service reminds us that as members of Congress, House and Senate, of our own responsibility to build a better future for all. We are profoundly grateful to you for making that happen. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Leader Pelosi. We really appreciate those kind words. Now joining us is the Democratic Leader of the United States Senate, the Honorable Charles Schumer.
Well, thank you, Chief Federosa, and to all who are about to be honored with either the Medal of Merit or the Medal of Honor. I salute you all. The Capitol Police devote themselves entirely to the safety of members of Congress and the public who visit our buildings daily. Every morning, the men and women of the Capitol Police, like all police, put on their uniform, praying for the kind of day the rest of us typically enjoy, a routine one. Most days, praise God, this is the case. But on the rare and terrible exception, Capitol Police are asked to put their own lives at risk in the defense of others. I recall the tragedy in 1998 when officers Jacob Chestnut and John Gibson gave their lives, ensuring safety in the Capitol. Our purpose today is to honor the bravery of the officers who recently met the call of duty under the most horrific of circumstances. Officers who woke up one ordinary morning to escort Majority Whip Scalise to an early baseball practice where they were met by an unexpected and unhinged attacker, armed with weapons of war. Officers whose decisive action, propelled by an instinctual courage and selflessness, averted tragedy and saved lives. The horror of June 14th, 2017 will forever stick in my mind, that an individual would fire upon members of Congress practicing for a charity baseball game. We are so fortunate for Capitol Police officers Crystal Griner and David Bailey, Alexandria officers Nicole Battaglia, Alexander Jensen, and Kevin Job. That morning, you, for heroism personified. And we are the ones who are honored to present you with the Medal of Merit and the Medal of Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Schumer. Next, please join me in welcoming the Majority Leader of the United States Senate, the Honorable Mitch McConnell, to make his remarks. Sir, good morning.
Thank you, Chief. Today is another chance for each of us to both recognize and thank the men and women of our Capitol Police Force for everything they do to protect our nation's capital, the people who work here, and the millions who visit this important symbol of our democracy. The United States Capitol Police stand as constant guards, routinely putting service before self. They are deserving of our deepest respect. They have earned our unyielding gratitude. Each and every day, I have the opportunity to interact with these law enforcement officers. They always exhibit professionalism, diligence, and service. I've had the privilege of working with some of them for many years. I know them. I'm incredibly thankful to each of them for their dedication. In addition to the Capitol Police, we're also pleased to honor the many other law enforcement agencies that responded to that Alexandria Park on June 14th when our own members and staff were under attack. These men and women we're honoring today ran toward the threat and stopped it. And we can't ever thank them enough. When most of us leave home for work on a given day, we have any number of things on our minds: meetings, deadlines, task to be accomplished. When a law enforcement officer walks out the door, they never know for sure what a day could bring, and neither do their families. And yet they walk out the door just the same, because for them, what they do is more than just a job or a career. It's a calling, and we are so grateful that they do. To underline the point, one need only say this: it's so great to see Steve Scalise with us here today. Along, of course, with the other members and staff who were on the field that day. And truly, what a blessing that is. The men and women of law enforcement go out each day to face the unknown, to help and assist people in their community, to confront challenges that others simply would not. Why do they do it? Courage, duty, honor. That's what I think. On behalf of the Senate family and the Capitol community, I'd like to once again share a simple message with the men and women of the United States Capitol Police and the Alexandria Police Department for their heroic efforts that day. Simple though it may be, it is a sincere and enduring thank you.
Thank you, Senator McConnell. Now it's my honor to welcome the Speaker of the House, the Honorable Paul Ryan. Sir.
Thank you, Chief. I want to thank all the Capitol Police, and I want to thank our local law enforcement and the Alexandria police officers. We want you to know that you and your families, they mean so much to us. For many of us, you are family to us and to our families. To see these officers get their due, this really is another milestone in all of our collective recovery. Even as we try to go back to normal, we see that we were so close to losing so many of our friends. Seeing Steve buzz around on this scooter of his, it makes us feel so grateful. We even root for LSU when it doesn't conflict with our own interests. I know these officers were just doing what they said is their jobs, but we would not be doing ours if we did not move forward without saluting these heroes. Your bravery and God's grace brought us together in those first difficult hours. There's one story from that day, June 14th, that I want to share with you real quickly. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon that day, and Agent Bailey came into my office to see me. That day, 4 o'clock. He was on his crutches. His pants were torn. He had his back pocket ripped, same clothes. We sat down in my office. We talked for about 10 minutes or so. And Bailey just kind of calmly walked me through for about 10 minutes what had happened. Here I was just jumping on the edge of my chair, still thinking about Steve, thinking about Crystal, thinking about Matt and Micah. And I realized that Bailey was putting me at ease. He was reassuring me. Except for the two things I mentioned, the crutches and the ripped clothes, you would have had no idea that just a couple hours earlier, a few hours earlier that day, this man's life was in danger. He was the same quiet, smiling, level-headed guy that we know. And I just got to say, from talking to all the members on the baseball team that day, hearing their stories, walking through exactly what they experienced and saw happen, it is so crystal clear that so many lives would have been taken that day if it weren't for these 5 people. This medal honors the actions that they took to save all of these lives in the face of this incredible danger. May it honor the grace and the selflessness that these officers showed in the days and weeks after as well. They sought no spotlights. They never do that. But that quiet professionalism, that courage, it's their training, it is their code, but we can all learn from it and truly draw some inspiration from it. It is what united us after this attack. It is how we have emerged stronger as a family. I think it's how we are emerging stronger as an institution. this branch of government. So just on behalf of all of us here in Congress, the country in Congress as an institution, thank you for saving the lives of our friends. We will always be in your debt. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I present our first award, I'd like to make 3 special presentations. First, I'd like to invite the coach and manager of the Republican team, Representative Joe Barton and Representative Roger Williams, to join me on center stage. The department would like to present Congressman Barton and Williams on behalf of the entire Republican baseball team the Medal of Merit. This medal is awarded to citizens for a number of reasons. Among them is for demonstrating courage in an emergency. Bravery displayed in the face of a life-threatening active shooter by all team members, colleagues, families, and friends on the practice field during the Alexandria shooting incident on June 14, 2017, as well as providing immediate aid and life-saving measures to those who were wounded as a result of this incident. I present the team with the Medal of Merit. Many thanks to both of you. Next, I would now ask Matt Micah and Zach Barth to join me for a special presentation. The department would like to present both of you with the United States Capitol Police Medal of Merit. Reads, in recognition of your bravery in the face of life-threatening active shooter and for the critical injuries sustained during the Alexandria shooting incident occurring on June 14, 2017, we present you with the Medal of Merit. Congratulations, guys, and we're very happy to see that your recovery is going so well. Finally, at this time, I would ask that Congressman Steve Scalise join me at center stage. The next medal goes to Representative Scalise for his remarkable courage under fire, as well as determination to come back from the critical injuries he sustained. I know I speak for everyone when I say we're very glad to have you here with us today, sir. In recognition of your bravery in the face of a life-threatening active shooter and for injuries sustained during the Alexandria shooting incident occurring on June 14th, the Medal of Merit.
Well, I really want to thank everybody for coming out to pay tribute to the police officers who sacrificed their lives for us. So often you don't see the heroism and the bravery and the professionalism because they quietly do their job. But they do their job every day knowing that maybe one day they might have to respond to some kind of tragedy. We've seen tragedies before. You look at what happened in Sutherland Springs. Our prayers still go out to those families, 26 dead. You look at the shooting in Las Vegas, where so many lives were lost and so many are still fighting for their lives. That day on June 14th could have turned out the exact same way. We all know what the outcome would have been if not for the heroism and the bravery of the men and women on this stage. Crystal and David, they're like family to Jennifer and I. As part of our security detail, they go with us, not just here at the Capitol, but when we go back home, when we're traveling around and just doing the things you've got to do in this job. They're there every step of the way. And they always know that there's going to be a time, just like the rest of our security detail, if they have to respond.
Hi guys, if you are just joining us on the stream, you're watching our live stream here on YouTube for Fox 5 Live at Fox 5 DC here, and I'm Molly in the studio. You probably, if you were on from the beginning and hated some of our regulars, I know Graham, you were on here before, in Austin. Thanks for joining us today. We played out the Congressional baseball shooting response honoring ceremony for 5 of the Capitol Police officers who responded in that event in June. That was from earlier this morning. And then we also caught live, which was really, really cool, the announcement of the World War I Memorial that's going to be going in at 14th and Pennsylvania Northwest, so right downtown DC, sort of right near the White House, actually, in Pershing Park. So that was a cool live event that we opened the show with. If you did happen to catch that, great. If not, when this stream goes down, you can actually go back and check it out. I was hoping to have somebody in here possibly to chat with about that and what it means to them. I know one of our reporters, Tom Fitzgerald, his great-grandfather, I believe, was a veteran from that war, and he has a lot to say on that. So maybe we'll get him in the chair on another day here. But for now, we have this live look, guys, at Sutherland Springs. You can see there, this is the memorial that they've put up for the victims of that shooting at the church. And we're going to kind of keep it here for now and then hopefully bring you to some more live events in and around DC. So feel free to chat with me here and ask any questions that you have. And thanks for following our coverage here.
Unafraid! Undocumented! Unafraid! Undocumented! Unafraid! Unafraid! Undocumented! Unafraid! Undocumented! Unafraid! Undocumented! Unafraid! Unafraid! Undocumented! Unafraid! Undocumented! Unafraid! 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 Undocumented!
When do you want it? When do you want it? When do you want it?
Now!
What do you want?
Unafraid! 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 Unashamed! Unashamed! Unafraid! Unafraid! Unashamed! Unashamed!
Lock arms!
All these racist politicians need our freedom. Back up, back up.
Guys, lock arms! Come on, we all a big family. Lock arms, lock arms.
Anywhere. See if you can back it up more. Get these people in the circle. This does not look like a circle to me. I failed geometry, but still. Polygon. Yeah, that's what we're calling it. Is it a complex polygon or?
Why are you bubbling?
No, it's Amy's day. It's Amy's day.
Congress act now! Congress act now! Congress act now!
Congress act now. 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 Congress act now! 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 Congress act now!
Speaker Paul Ryan went on the public and said that he is not committed to get a clean DREAM Act done by the end of this year. How do you feel about that? That office right there, that's Speaker Paul Ryan's office. Paul Ryan, what do we want? Clean DREAM Act. What do we want? Clean DREAM Act. What do we want? Clean DREAM Act. When? Now. When? Now. When? Now. We don't get it. Shut it down. We don't get it. Shut it down. We don't get it. Shut it down. Earlier today, at the Hart Senate building, over 10 courageous people were arrested. 15 people got arrested, demanding that Congress act now. Our brothers and sisters put their bodies on the line to send a clear message to Paul Ryan and Senator Mitch McConnell that they cannot stand behind in their offices and do nothing. Paul Ryan is a coward that decided to ignore our demand today and say that he has no urgency to get this done this year. Shame! 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 We're gonna have who we're here to talk about are people like us, Hataka, whose lives are at stake, whose families are now in a place where we don't know what's going to happen if we don't get a DREAM Act done this year. And so now we're gonna get young people from our network to come up here and share their story of why they took action today. Why did they walk out? What is at stake? Because those are the stories that we have to tell every day. That Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell have to hear every day. So that they don't come out here with an excuse of, I don't feel the urgency. I don't need to get this done. They need to hear our stories. Are you ready for that? Yeah! Hello, everybody. My name is Ibrahim Benzon. I am a DACA recipient. I wake up early for school. Or for work. I live off of DACA. And they cannot take that away. Hello. My name is Agustin Pereira. And we all walk out today because we want a Clean Dream Act. Because there are 11 million undocumented immigrants. 20,000 in D.C. And we won't take no for an answer. Thank you very much.
What do we want? Clean Dream Act. When do we want it?
Now.
All right, let's hear from some Dreamer moms. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Jacqueline López.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Jacqueline López.
Soy una madre de Dreamers y me considero de los 800,000.
Soy una madre de Dreamers y me considero de los 800,000.
Hey guys, if you're on with us, you're watching this stream of the Dreamers. This is actually dubbed Operation Dream Act. It's a nationwide protest where students at various schools and universities were going to walk out of their schools at 11:40 a.m. So this happened prior to this, but this is the massive rally on Capitol Hill, and you can see we have a live camera there, and our reporter Ronica Cleary is also there. She actually just tweeted out this picture. You can check it out. Here, there's one of the signs with a little poem that says, "Roses are red, tacos are enjoyable, quit blaming immigrants because you're unemployable." So it's just one of the many signs that is there. We have this double shot right now with the protests on the Hill, and then also the memorial honoring the victims of the Texas church shooting down in the left corner of your screen. So they are right outside of Paul Ryan's office, demanding really that Capitol Hill, that Congress comes up with a clean Dream Act to be set forth by December. This after, of course, the Trump administration announced that he was going to end DACA. So now it looks like we have a shot outside the Capitol dome, and you can see sort of the amount of people who are there with cameras and signs. These are people who are part of this program possibly, or just protesting, and they're concerned that the actual act is going to be riddled with other amendments and parts that could sort of tie up people from, or congressmen from voting for it, congressmen and women from voting, and let it not pass. So that's what they're protesting today, and you can see and hear some of their chants and their signs as well. And then we'll keep this shot up too of the live look in Texas for you guys to check out on the live stream.
Instilled by my parents. They worked hard for this country. I worked hard for this country. Millions of other dreamers worked hard for this country. We want to make this country great. Not just for ourselves, but for millions of others. So today I'm here. To give voice to those who weren't able to be here. To get them out of the shadows and tell. Paul Ryan that he needs to pass a Clean Dream Act. And when do we want it? Now!
changes and stuff. How are you being treated at
Oh my God, what you can say. Hey guys, so I'm here with my official one of our photographers. He wants to run away from me. I think he has a gig. He's gonna go, but you just saw a quick glimpse of Veronica. Looks like they're putting down the camera. So we're actually gonna go over to Capitol Hill. I believe some Congress. I'm actually not sure what this is. I think it's either something in the Senate or the House, but they're speaking on Capitol Hill. So we'll go right over there because it's live. Take that first from inside the DC Digital Newsroom, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us.
That was refused by the committee, and yet we had, I think, 3 or 4 of the electeds from Alaska there to testify. So in this process, we know that the deck is stacked as it is, and we will look for amendments that we think could possibly improve the process, but we are going to be very, very clear about the fact that this process is not regular order. It's not the intention. And the only way they can open up drilling, again, for something we don't believe is going to generate the revenue or is needed to give tax breaks to corporations, is by mandating it, mandating the leasing. So the questions we'll be raising are, what's next? What other wildlife refuge in America are you going to mandate drilling in? What other parts are you going to just roll over current environmental law and just say that you have to drill just to get revenue for the tax break? So we will be drawing those distinctions as part of this process. And if people, you're all probably a little too young to remember the last time that we went through this, but it is just a very big reflection on the fact that
So they have the national umbrella, and they have, I think, 44 groups all over the country, and they just, did cold calls to people who have acted before or people who have flagged themselves as ready to act. They've called executive directors, and then they called us, and I was actually participating in a hunger fast about a month ago in DC. So yeah.
What changed today when you guys heard the announcement from Speaker Ryan? It was originally you had just a series of protests planned, but then something happened when you heard about his press conference, correct?
Yeah, so I mean, we've all been kind of active on social media just pushing this out, and a couple of us saw it just scrolling through, and I think that just made the urgency even more prevalent to us. It made us see that, oh wow, like we're out here screaming at the top of our lungs. We came from all over the country, and we're still not important enough to be voted on until the next year. So that, I think that really just made us want to get Paul Ryan to show his face and come out and tell us why.
When the president came out and first sort of made this something that he put back on Congress to do, I interviewed a dreamer that day, I remember, and he said to me he had hope, though. He said that there was still a path and he felt hopeful. Do you feel hope? Do you feel that you may still be protected when all is said and done?
Honestly, I think hope is the last thing that dies. I know that I've seen this go on for the last 17 years, since 2000, the fight for the DREAM Act, and I would listen to my parents when I was little saying, oh, like something's gonna happen. They're gonna pass a comprehensive reform, and I mean it's been 20 years. And
how old were you when you came here?
2.5.
So the DREAM Act, though, it only gave you 2-year little stints. I mean, don't you want a better solution than the DREAM Act?
Yeah, we always knew that the deferred action for childhood arrivals was temporary, and that was our biggest issue with it. But when somebody hands you something, or when you fight for something, rather, that is going to protect you even for 2 years at a time, that you're able to go to school, work. I was able to help my parents open a restaurant where they employ American workers. And I think when that's given, or when you get that, you just kind of want to believe that you're going to be able to hold on to that and from there fight on.
Thank you so much for sharing your very thoughtful comments. I really appreciate it. Can we get a couple more dreamers? We'd love to speak with a few people. Do you want to bring them here, or okay? Is that okay, Ronnie? If we hang out here?
Oh, who about? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, she's from Kansas.
That's okay.
We traveled all the
We
way from
realized
Kansas.
people travel.
Yeah.
I didn't understand. I'm sorry, I didn't realize
I'll
that.
get you somebody.
Hi. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Are you a part of
I'm a
DACA?
DACA recipient.
Okay, great. Thank you. What's your first and last name? Say and spell it for me, please.
Zulema, Zuleyma, Arias, Arias.
Where do you live now, and where are you from originally?
I live in Colorado, this little town called Summit County. I am originally from Mexico, Cancun, Mexico. I was brought to the U.S. when I was a year old, Unfortunately, my dad passed away in Denver. So my mom came and she brought me with her. And I grew and went to school here. I am married. I have a 2-year-old daughter, and my husband is also a DACA recipient. I am here today because I was fortunate enough to renew my DACA before October 5th, but my husband wasn't. And his DACA will expire April.
So I want to talk about that. You know, DACA was just a deferred program. It deferred something that still seemed inevitable. It was every 2 years. It wasn't really a permanent solution for you, isn't? Is that prospect of maybe a permanent solution out of what the president called for and putting it back on Congress, does that give you some hope? Do you think that would be better in the end if they come up with something? I mean, isn't that better than what you had?
Definitely. It would be great if we could just be legalized permanently instead of being having to renew a permit every 2 years. That would be the ideal. That's what we want, and that's what we're fighting for. We've been here, all of us. We've been here for all our lives. This is our country. This is where we grew up, and I think we contribute a lot to this country to just not taking the way we want to be taken, I guess. Just like they said, another statistic of what we are. In reality, we are real people who just want to make our lives good and be happy, contribute to the country that we grew up in.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Do you have a card we can?
Sure, I have a card. Can I give it to you when we're kind of wrapping up? Is that okay? I mean, he has my cell phone number. We've been communicating all day. Yeah. Anybody else that we can talk to? Or now you. Okay. We only really need like 3 or 4. We already talked to 2 people.
Okay.
It's great that there's so many people here. I would love to get some numbers from you on how many DACA recipients do you think came out today, even if they're estimates from your group that we could include in our report tonight. That would be.
You know what?
That would be great.
So hey, Ricky.
And we don't need that until about 4 o'clock. I mean, we have some time for that.
Okay.
But I just want to make sure to add to the piece because we can't interview everybody.
Well, I want to introduce you to. So this is Ricky Campos.
Hi, Ricky.
So Ricky is the he's United We Dreams East Coast organizer.
Okay.
So this is his brainchild and his baby.
Oh, okay, great. Maybe let's talk to you. You're not a DACA recipient, or you are?
I am. Yeah.
Oh, great. Let's definitely talk to you because you came up with all this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's definitely talk. Okay.
Yeah. So he's a great person so I'll make sure that you two have each other's info.
Okay, great.
But he knows what's going on in all this local schools.
Perfect.
And all that.
Perfect. Let's talk real quick. So tell me your first and last name. Say and spell it, please.
Ricardo Campos, Ricardo Campos.
Where do you live now, and where are you from originally?
I'm from El Salvador, and I live in Silver Spring, Maryland.
When did you come to the United States?
So I came to the U.S. at the age of 12, and this is the place that I know as home since then.
Why did you organize today? What compelled you to put something like this together?
So, look, I think that one of the most important things to remember right now is that with the conversation, when the president decided to eliminate the program DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival, which will allow us to remain out of the fear of deportation for 2 years, we saw the urgency of really like having a legislative solution. But what's going on right now is that we pass from like really offering protection to dreamers, to use dreamer stories, my story as an undocumented immigrant, an American, to use it as bargaining chip to get their white nationalist anti-immigrant agenda move forward. Now this
How do they use your story? Tell me what that means.
Oh, they're saying poor dreamers, we're gonna give them papers, but on top of that, we're gonna add them border security, where we're gonna deport their parents. That's how the story has been going on, and a couple of weeks later, and most likely, it's just being about enforcement. And recently, we just heard them saying that they don't want to find a solution. So right now, immigrants and youth from all over the country and here in DC, the DMV area, are pissed. They're mad. They're tired. This is the representation of the American people across the country. We want a permanent solution. We want it now. We want it this year. And this is a call to all Congress that they must act now, especially the leadership, that they should stop using us as their toys, and they should start to work into finding a solution that does not jeopardize our families and community.
Last question. So the DACA was only a deferred program, right? Every 2 years you had to apply. There seemed to be no effort to give you a permanent solution, really, until this got pushed back to the Congress to come up with something over this 6-month period. Do you think there's a possibility that things might end up being better for you?
So I believe that what they do was what the president did was wrong, completely wrong, by eliminating the program DACA. Congress could have acted into finding a permanent solution, but there was no need to end the program, right? We know that the program was working and it will continue working, and I wouldn't be in fear of being deported right now if the program will be still in place. But what we know is that they have taken really, really bad decisions right now in the presidency, and that Congress needs to act now, and that we need a clean dream act.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks for your thoughtful comments. I really appreciate it. Such great spokespeople to talk to. I think we have plenty of sound now.
So there's a group of kids. I don't know.
Maybe we won't talk to them because if they're underage, I mean, we could say that they're, tell us that they're here. Are they the ones in orange? Yes, we can talk to you too. Sure. I know you were waiting. We'll ask you some questions, but and then we're gonna head out, and I'll call you.
So Gaithersburg High School.
This is the stuff that you send to me because I'm not writing this down right now. So if you just text me some of the high schools like that would be perfect.
Just a little lost for all the screen.
That's okay. We won't ask you too many questions. What's your first and last name? Say and spell it, please.
Hello, my name is Fernando Gutierrez, Fernando, and then my last name is Gutierrez.
Where are you from originally, and where do you live now?
Okay, so I was born in Guadalajara, Mexico, and my parents took me to Arkansas and my brother and I whenever we were 4 years old, and so now we're living in Fort Smith, Arkansas.
What is your message to people who think that DACA should be overturned?
Whenever people say DACA should be overturned, I mean, they don't realize what they're saying. These people, these children, they had no fault, coming to the States, as they should know. And so, these kids grew up in public schools. And so if you think about it, this is like an investment that they're just going to throw out of the country. Like these kids are smart. They're your engineers. They're your electronic majors. We got a lot of reporters. They got all kinds of great jobs and opportunities. I know my brother, he had his own business over in Fort Smith, Arkansas for some time. And so whenever you're kicking these people out, when you're saying, hey, let's get rid of these DACA people, I mean...
What people?
The DACA-mented people. I'm sorry. Yeah, the DACA-mented people. You're not thinking it through. These are good people. Most of us have clean records. Our parents raised us in such a way that we just want to pursue and further our education, and so that way we could have better opportunities. So whenever people say that, it really hits my heart. Like it's messed up in a lot of different ways.
Thank you so much. It was really nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming over and talking with us. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
You don't have a phone?
Yeah, I am. Thank you for asking. Sorry, that's just why I stopped. But we interviewed a bunch of people.
Great. No, you're fine. As long as you got who you needed.
Do you all have a card, or did you all
He has all my info, and we've been texting, and then I'll follow up with an email to him later today. So I think we're good. Thank you so much. Thanks for welcoming us. I'm glad we caught up with you. Yeah. Someone from your crew was at one of the walkouts this morning. We heard it. Yeah. That was a yeah. It was an interesting walkout. This is all the guys. One guy was like, "Hey, Mom!" And I was like, The principal came out. Are you with the walkout? Yeah. I'll start.
right, everybody, that was the live footage of that protest on Capitol Hill. So glad you were able to join us for that, and we were happy to be able to have that raw video for you from Ronica, who was there interviewing some of the Dreamers themselves. They were giving their opinions on this act and what they're really calling for today in this nationwide protest and the school walkout, like I mentioned, how today was actually officially dubbed as far as the Dreamers go, and this whole the protest really for the fact that President Trump's administration decided to put the nix on DACA. So thanks again for joining us for that. We're going to leave you with this really moving shot of, I believe it's live still, yeah, this moving shot of Sutherland Springs and the memorial that has been put up for the 26 victims of that church shooting. Nothing else really pressing or breaking coming down in our sources, so we'll catch you again tomorrow for more live and breaking news. Thanks for joining us today, guys.